Hello aspirants, welcome to the world of ethics. Students, it is an open secret and common knowledge that GS paper 4, that is Ethics, Integrity and Aptitude, is perhaps the most rewarding of all the GS papers. If you analyze the results since 2013, why I'm saying that year? Because that is the year when ethics was introduced in the civil services main examination, you will find one thing. One very pertinent thing, and that is the students who have secured high ranks in the civil services examination have done excellently well in their GS paper 4. GS paper 4 in fact is the game changer in your general studies section. But despite this appreciation of the GS paper 4 and the enthusiasm around it, several students, they struggle in GS paper 4. Let us try to understand that what are the reasons behind this enormous struggle with respect to GS paper 4. Well, there are three major reasons why students struggle in ethics. The first and the foremost is they confuse ethics with morality. To understand the difference between ethics and morality, let us take an example. Suppose you feel that eating non-vegetarian food is not good. Why? Because you attach a high value to the life of an animal. You have an utter sense of distaste with respect to non-vegetarian food. But suppose the society in which you are living for the time being assumes that if somebody wants to eat non-vegetarian food, that person should have the freedom to do so. Then your inner belief with respect to the non-vegetarian food consumption is part of your morals. That is morality. Morality is very personal thing, whereas ethics is a set of standards, norms, or principles which the society places upon itself, against which human actions or actions of individuals are judged as right or wrong, good or bad. So when you felt that eating non-vegetarian food was bad, it was your morals. There is no guarantee that what you feel, the entire society also feels like that. What society thinks as a whole with respect to right or wrong, good or bad, that is ethics. So what is UPSC expecting from the students? It is expecting the ethical standards to get reflected in their answers. But most of the time, the students, they end up writing their own sense of rightness or wrongness, goodness or badness. So they confuse morality with ethics. That is the first major problem. The second major problem is, even if they understand that they have to write ethics, they do not back their arguments with the thoughts of moral thinkers. It means there is an ethical hollowness in and around their arguments, which make their arguments very weak. Suppose there are some questions where the examiner asks you that what would you do under such circumstances? So you end up writing your view, which can be your morals, just the reflection of your morals, but you do not juxtapose your thoughts or your arguments with the arguments or the theories of the moral philosophers or thinkers or the world leaders, which make your arguments very shallow in appearance. And that is the second reason why you do not end up getting good marks in ethics. The third reason is students fail to tackle the ethical paradoxes which are reflected in this paper throughout, especially in case studies. You might have seen that in case studies there would be a statement which would ask that under such circumstances, what action will you follow? And give sufficient reasons to back your actions. Ethical paradoxes or ethical dilemmas are situations where both the things appear right, and you cannot say that one is outrightly wrong and the other one is outrightly correct. That is not an ethical dilemma kind of situation. In ethical dilemma, both seems right, and only this, that you have to make a value judgment and you have to choose one over the other. It means you have to sacrifice some ethical norms in favor of some other. And while doing so, what most of the aspirants fail, they do not back their views or their course of action by moral thoughts. It means the thoughts of the thinkers, the world leaders, or the established ethical philosophies. So these are the major three reasons why aspirants struggle in ethics. But the biggest reason, as far as the ethics subject is concerned, I feel, is that aspirants do not undertake the syllabus into their contention. It means they fail to understand the syllabus of ethics. This is the biggest reason for not scoring good marks in ethics. So let us have a quick decipherment of the syllabus of GS paper 4. But before we decipher the syllabus of GS paper 4, it becomes pertinent for us to understand that from which disciplines GS paper 4 is extracting its subject matter. Well, students, in 2013, when UPSC introduced GS paper 4 as a part of the civil services main examination, those students who had philosophy as their optional, they were in jubilation. They thought that the GS paper 4 is just a mere reflection of the philosophy syllabus. Those who had sociology felt that the subject is drawn mostly from sociology. Those who had psychology claimed that look at the topics like attitude, aptitude, emotional intelligence. GS paper 4 comes out from our optional, that is psychology. And those who had public administration claimed that look at the topics like ethics in public administration or probity in governance or values for civil services. And therefore, GS paper 4 is a subset of the public administration optional. Well, that is UPSC for you. In fact, GS paper 4 is an admixture or amalgamation of all these 4 subjects. The syllabus of GS paper 4, if you look as it is given in the UPSC main syllabus, it has 8 broad topics, and they are ethics and human interface, attitude, aptitude and foundational values for civil services, emotional intelligence, moral thinkers from world and India, administrative ethics or ethics in public administration, probity in governance, and the case studies. So if you analyze these topics, you will see that the first topic, that is ethics and human interface, some portion of it comes from philosophy, that is moral philosophy, which is ethics, and some portion of it comes from sociology. Like there is a topic like values which the society or the educational institutions help in inculcating into an individual. So that is the role played by society, educational institution in inculcation of values. That's a part of society or sociology optional. And therefore you see that the first unit comes from moral philosophy, that is a part of philosophy, and sociology. The second, third and fourth units, that is attitude, aptitude and emotional intelligence, comes mostly from social psychology. They are part of the psychology optional. Topic number 5 again is a pure philosophy topic. It means you have the thoughts and the views and the theories of thinkers from world and India. It comes from the philosophy optional. Topic number 6, which is ethics in public administration, and topic number 7, which is probity in governance, comes from the public administration optional, whereas case studies are based on all of them. So you cannot say that the subject matter of ethics comes from one particular optional, rather it comes from 4 major optional subjects. But those who do not have any of these optional, do not worry, because what is asked in UPSC is very general. Why? Because GS paper 4 is part of the general studies section. So let us now try to have a brief look into every topic individually. So the first topic is ethics and human interface. This unit can be divided into 2 parts, ethics and human interface. In ethics, we try to understand the meaning of ethics, the dimensions of ethics, the characteristics of ethics, the different branches of ethics. I told you that ethics is a set of standards, norms or principles which the society places over itself, and against those standards, individual actions are judged from the viewpoint of righteousness or wrongfulness, rightness or wrongness, goodness or badness. The second part of the syllabus, which is human interface, can be divided into 2 parts, human values and human actions. Human actions are those actions which are performed by humans with the investment of thought and volition. That is, these actions are not forced action, but they are voluntary actions which are performed by free will. Only those actions are judged in ethics. Forced actions do not become a subject matter of ethics. So, one part of this subpart deals with human actions. The other one is human values. What do we understand by human values? Human values are certain beliefs which are very dear to humans, and on the basis of which human action is often guided. In fact, behaviors are often a reflection of the values of an individual. Say, for example, you attach a very high value to integrity. Therefore, you will not indulge into an act of corruption. In this very unit, we understand the role of family, educational institution, and society in the inculcation of values into an individual. We also try to understand the lessons that we learn from the lives of great leaders and world thinkers from whom we can inculcate some values. Like, say, for example, we can inculcate the value of truth from Mahatma Gandhi. We can inculcate courage from Abraham Lincoln. So this unit is all about ethics and human interface. The second unit deals with attitude. Attitude means a psychological tendency with the help of which a particular person views at a particular thing, other persons, place, event with some degree of favor or disfavor. Let's understand this with the help of this example. Suppose there is someone who likes a city. Suppose I like the city of Delhi. So I will have a positive attitude with respect to everything that is there in Delhi. If somebody is not satisfied with the city of Delhi, it means he has a negative attitude towards the city of Delhi. He might dislike everything with respect to the city of Delhi. So the second unit deals with attitude formation. What are the different components of attitude? Whether attitudes are static or they change over time. What do we mean by attitude ambivalence? What is the role of society in the formation of attitude? Can attitude help in guiding behavior? All of this we deal in Unit 2. The third unit deals with aptitude and foundational values for civil services. Aptitude refers to an innate, inherent ability of an individual to perform a particular task or learn a new skill. Say, for example, Virat Kohli had this innate, inherent capability to develop himself into a cricketer. Obviously, he has polished that aptitude with the help of training. So, aptitude is that innate, inherent capability of an individual to perform a particular task or learn a new skill. Everyone is born with some or the other aptitude. Someone is a good singer, someone is a good painter, someone is good in studies. So everyone has some or the other aptitude. Similarly, there are some aptitudes or some skills which are desired in a civil servant. The other part of this unit is foundational values for civil services. Every civil servant must have some non-negotiable values. And what are they? Say, for example, integrity. It means he should be non-corruptible in nature. Impartiality, objectivity. He must have empathy, compassion, dedication. So all of this is dealt into this third unit. The fourth unit talks about emotional intelligence. Well, our brain has two sections. First is the cognitive section, through which we make rational decisions. Well, the other one is the affective section, through which we make emotional decisions. Emotional intelligence caters to the affective portion of the human brain. Now, the cognitive portion can help in the development of IQ, whereas the affective portion helps in the development of EQ. And in a civil servant, both IQ as well as EQ are desired. What is this emotional intelligence? Well, it is the ability to understand and perceive emotions, evaluate those emotions, control the emotions, and use the emotions in making better decisions. Peter Salovey and John D. Mayer have introduced the concept of emotional intelligence in 1990. as a subpart of their overall social intelligence. And since then, emotional intelligence have become a very desirable character trait in the public servants. So this fourth unit deals with the importance of emotional intelligence. Remember, emotional intelligence is the ability to understand your own emotions and the emotion of others. Think about a civil servant who is engaged in some welfare schemes. If he understands the emotional structure of the people who are the beneficiaries under that scheme, he would be able to perform his task in a better manner. And that's why emotional intelligence becomes crucial for a civil servant. The next topic is the moral thinkers. Let's understand that as well. If you ask me that which is the most interesting section of your entire syllabus, I will pick the fifth unit, and that is the unit on moral thinkers and thoughts from world and India. Now, you see that those students who escape from this unit or they voluntarily skip this unit, they face terrible problems in the examination hall. If your arguments which you are presenting in your answer sheets are not backed properly by moral philosophies or thoughts, you will end up getting low scores. Therefore, this unit becomes crucial. In this unit, we understand the moral theories or the thoughts of different moral philosophers, right from Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, John Stuart Mill, Jeremy Bentham, John Rawls, Immanuel Kant, to Indian scholars like Jiddu Krishnamurti, Swami Vivekananda, Adi Shankaracharya, Mahatma Gandhi. Therefore, this unit is perhaps the crux of your syllabus. The next unit deals with administrative ethics. Let's have a look at that as well. Ethics in public administration. This unit deals with how ethical principles can act as a guide for a public servant. An IS officer or an IPS officer or any central services officer during his term in office faces numerous situations which are full of ethical paradoxes or moral dilemmas. Under such circumstances, which is the right course of action? This unit gives us insight in helping us to choose the right action under such circumstances. It overall deals with the expected morals that are to be exhibited in governance. But it also deals with not only local governance, but also international governance. It talks about ethics in international relations, and it also calls for the expected ethical standards that needs to be followed by the corporates, which we call as corporate governance. So this unit is dedicated to ethics in governance, or rather ethics in administration. The next unit deals with probity in governance. Probity in governance simply means establishment of a system which is free from corruption. If you read the second ARC report, you will find that there is a unit dedicated to ethics in governance, and that mostly reflects the probity that is expected in governance. In this unit, we read things like the RTI Act, the Whistleblowers Act, the codes of ethics, the codes of conduct, how transparency needs to be established with respect to utilization of public funds, how we must not underutilize public funds, how we must not misuse public funds. So it is mostly dealing with the aspect of corruption. Remember, the previous unit, it deals with the overall ethical behavior that is expected from a civil servant and how he can use these ethical standards while performing his duties. Whereas this unit specifically targets corruption, because you know corruption unfortunately has emerged as an evil in our administrative system. Therefore, this unit targets corruption. The last unit deals with case studies. UPSC syllabus reads the 8th topic as case studies based on the above issues. It means case studies on ethics and human interface, attitude, aptitude, emotional intelligence, moral thinkers and their thoughts, ethics in public administration, and probity in governance. Though the syllabus reads like this, if you analyze the question papers from 2013 onwards, you will find that case studies are mostly based on topic number 6 and 7, that is ethics in public administration and probity in governance. At times, case studies are also based on the fourth topic, that is emotional intelligence. But all case studies, they inculcate the human values. They also inculcate attitude and aptitude to some extent. But if you try to understand the overall caricature of the case studies, you will understand that they are mostly based on the 6th and 7th topic, that is ethics in public administration and probity in governance. A lot of focus is with respect to probity in governance as far as case studies are concerned. Now, the art of writing case studies is a altogether different art. Though this is just a single topic, if you will see the question papers, this topic alone holds approximately 50% weightage of the total marks. In fact, in 2018 and 2019, if you will see that 120 marks out of 250 marks come from this topic alone. It is nothing, but it is the application of all the knowledge that you have gathered in the above 7 topics. And that's why UPSC syllabus reads as case studies based on above topics. Ethics can be broadly classified into 3 major branches: meta-ethics, normative ethics, and applied ethics. Meta-ethics deals with the science of ethical language. For example, when we ask questions like, what is the meaning of ethics? What is the meaning of morality? Is morality subjective or objective? Is morality cognitive or non-cognitive? What do you mean by justice? We are in the realm of meta-ethics. When we ponder over questions like this, we are dealing with meta-ethics. Normative ethics, as the name suggests, establishes certain norms and expects everyone to follow those norms. It is prescriptive in nature. For example, when you go to a doctor, the doctor gives you a certain prescription. So in normative ethics also, the normative ethicists, they have given us certain prescriptions and they ask us to follow those prescriptions to develop ourselves into better moral beings. Normative ethics can be further subdivided into 3 major branches: the virtue ethics, consequentialist ethics, and categorical ethics. Virtue ethicists believe that by developing the better traits of your character, you can be developed into a better human being. And when everyone is a better human being, the entire society benefits. For example, if you are honest and everyone else is also honest in the society, it is good for everyone. That is the belief of virtue ethicists. Greatest proponents of virtue ethics are Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. Consequentialist ethics believes that an action is a good action if it brings good consequences, or an action is a right action if it brings good consequences. An action is a wrong action if it brings bad consequences. It means they attach value to the outcome of the action rather than the action itself. For example, if you kill a terrorist who is about to detonate a bomb which would otherwise kill scores of innocent people, then consequentialist ethicists would defend your action of killing the terrorist because the consequences of that killing is good for the society. The greatest proponent of consequentialist ethics are John Stuart Mill, Jeremy Bentham. A popular theme in consequentialist ethics is utilitarianism, and Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill are its greatest proponents. The third part of normative ethics is categorical ethics. Categorical ethicists believe that certain actions are inherently right or wrong, irrespective of the consequences that they produce. For example, they believe that lying is wrong, even if you are lying to save someone. Immanuel Kant's deontological thought is perhaps the most celebrated aspect of categorical ethics. The third branch of ethics is applied ethics. In applied ethics, we apply the normative ethical principles and the knowledge that we have drawn from meta-ethics to day-to-day affairs. In other words, when we ponder over questions and we try to ethically judge issues like whether it is morally correct to declare war, whether it is correct to perform euthanasia or mercy killing, whether it is correct to have abortion laws, we are in the realm of applied ethics. The case study portion of your ethics paper is based on applied ethics. The ethics paper was introduced in 2013. So from 2013 to 2019, we have 7 question papers in our hands with respect to GS paper 4. And if you analyze those question papers, you will find that 50% weightage in the question papers has been given to applied ethics. I told you that the case study section is based on applied ethics, and therefore applied ethics becomes crucial and you must prepare this section very well. The problem is that most of the books do not deal well with applied ethics, and that's why the aspirants face a lot of problems with respect to applied ethics. Applied ethics is nothing but the application of the ethical knowledge which you have attained from the theoretical portions of meta-ethics and normative ethics. From 2013 to 2017, for the first 5 years, you will see that the number of questions in GS paper 4 counted to 14. 6 of them were from case studies and the rest 8 came from the theoretical sections. The first and the second questions had 2 to 3 subsections, whereas all the other questions from 3rd to 8 has 2 sections each. But come 2018, UPSC has made some alterations in the GS paper 4. The number of questions has been reduced from 14 to 12. But note here very carefully, the number of case study questions have not been tinkered with. It means the 6 case study questions which were continuing from 2013, that trend has been maintained in 2018 as well as in 2019. But from 2018 onwards, we see that there are 6 questions from theory and 6 questions based on case studies. The 6 questions which are based on theories, from question number 1 to 5, every question is divided into 2 parts and carries 10 marks. Whereas the 6th question is divided into 3 parts and carries 10 marks each. So therefore the 6th question becomes 30 marker, whereas question number 1 to 5, they are 20 markers. Therefore, I tell you that it is very important for you to understand the moral thinkers and thought section very carefully. Why? Because if you see the question paper of 2018 and 2019, you will see that this 6th question, which is 30 marks, comes from the 5th unit of your syllabus. That is the unit on moral thinkers and thought. Therefore, it becomes very important for you to focus on applied ethics and on moral thinkers and thoughts. And I told you that unless you incorporate the moral thinkers and their thoughts in your case studies, which is part of your applied ethics, you will not fetch marks. Therefore, students, it becomes very crucial for us not only to understand meta-ethics and normative ethics, but also understand the applied ethics part and do enough practice for applied ethics so that we can score big in our ethics GS paper 4. तो अब तक की कहानी सुनकर आपको ऐसा लग रहा होगा that ethics is very difficult. Well, just the opposite is true. Ethics is not at all difficult. Ethics is not difficult, it is different. It is different from your GS paper 1, 2 and 3. Because GS paper 1, 2 and 3 deals with everything that is outside you. For example, history, geography, polity, economy, environment, science and tech. Everything is happening outside you. But GS paper 4 or ethics, integrity and aptitude, it deals with what is there inside you. That is why this paper is special. Now, keep this in mind that those who do well in their GS paper 4 mostly perform well in the mains examination, and their chances of selection improves exorbitantly. Therefore, it becomes important for you to give a lot of focus to GS paper 4. Then कितना time invest करें GS paper 4 पे जब इतना important है तो? Well, I tell you, it will not take you more than a month to master this paper. In my classes, through 25 lectures, I cover every aspect of this GS paper 4. I cover the scholars in a detailed fashion. I make you write more than 100 case studies with me, which make you which prepares you and makes you good with respect to case study, and the fear with respect to case study is totally obliterated by that intensive writing program. I also give you a basic book on ethics, and I give you a special book that is Ethics Thinkers Digest, or as I popularly call it, 70 Thinkers, 70 Thoughts. In that, I have summarized the thoughts of 70 thinkers from world and India, renowned thinkers, in 2 pages dedicated to each thinker. So it's a brief summary on all the thinkers and their thoughts, which can act as a ready-made reference for the aspirants when they write answers. I also give you an ethics case study practice workbook so that you can do some practice from your own and you can further enrich your content with respect to the case studies. Finally, I conduct some sectional tests and mock tests. Ultimately, our aim is to score 125 plus in ethics. Yes, I am not joking. This is very much possible in ethics, and if you score 125 in one GS paper, you can understand that how handsome your chances become as far as qualifying the civil services main examination is concerned. So come with me, let's dive into this beautiful world of ethics and emerge out of it as better human beings.